In order to practice professional counseling, an individual must obtain license from the state they wish to practice in. As we previously learned, every state has different criteria and requirements for license, which further reiterates the necessity for portability within the profession. The academic requirements for the state of California is a 60-hour master's program, and there are 13 core content areas for the California licensure, and the titles and descriptions for the core classes can be found on calpcc.org. For out-of-state applicants, a syllabus must be submitted that meet the 13 core content courses from the graduated institution, and the California Association for Licensed Professional Clinical Counselors make the final determination on whether the course descriptions are acceptable. Field experience requires completion of a supervised practicum of 100 clock hours. 40 of these hours must be in direct face-to-face setting. Internship requires the completion of a supervised internship in a designated program of 600 clock hours. 240 clock hours minimum must be completed in a direct face-to-face setting. Requirements for postmaster's supervised clinical experience include the completion of at least 3,000 hours over the course of 2 years of a post-degree supervised clinical counseling experience. At least 1,750 hours must be completed in direct face-to-face contact. 150 hours minimum must be in a hospital or community health setting. 500 hours max for group counseling and 50 hours max for phone crisis counseling. The NCE, the National Counselor Exam, and California Law and Ethics Examination is required for licensure. State licensure is permission from a particular state government to practice counseling or identify oneself as a licensed counselor. Licensure is designed to legally define who can use the title of a licensed counselor and who can provide counseling services in a particular state. California state licensure is not tiered, and the National Clinical Mental Health Counselor Examination is used for licensure. California Licensed Professional Clinical Counselor's scope of practice focuses exclusively on the application of counseling interventions and psychotherapeutic techniques for the purposes of improving mental health. A surprising element to California licensure is that the California licensing scope does not include the assessment of treatment of couples or families unless the licensed professional clinical counselor has 6 semester units focused on marriage and family therapy, 500 hours supervised experience working with couples, families, or children, and 6 hours of continuing education units in marriage and family therapy, each renewal cycle of licensing. I would have assumed that with the required group hours necessary in practicum and internship, that treatment of couples and families would easily fall within the scope, but it does not. Some of the miscellaneous requirements for California licensure includes 36 hours of continuing education units required every 2 years for licensed professional clinical counselors, and the initial renewal period following initial licensing requires only 18 continuing education units, and the 18 units should include 6 hours of law and ethics and 7 hours of HIV/AIDS continuing education.